Yeah, Sakai's the South Fremantle's theme song playing there in the background, and the new coach of the Rough Tough Bulldogs joins us on the show now. He's a premiership player with the Bulldogs at league level. He was a premiership player at Colts level as well. Craig White. Craig, welcome.
Thanks for having me on, Duff.
It's good to have you on, mate. So 192 games for the Red and Whites in senior colours. You were a premiership player with the club. What brought you back to the club as a coach?
Oh, look, the process was a little bit of a funny one, Duff. We obviously I think it was relatively well known that Peter Sumich was probably the front runner to get the role, and then when he made himself unavailable, being able to sit down and be asked by the club to go through the process to apply and giving it some thought with the family and realistically just, you know, if it was try and work out if it was something that I really wanted to do, and when all the ducks lined up that it was the old club. I work in Fremantle, the supportive wife at home that was there. It all added up that I had a crack and was lucky enough to be appointed after the interview process.
I think we might have announced on this show Peter Sumich was going to coach the South Fremantle Bulldogs, so we certainly zigged where we should have zagged on that one. Tell us about the selection process itself. It can be pretty demanding when clubs are looking for a coach. What did you have to go through to get the nod?
Yeah, there was a couple of interview processes that went for well over an hour in each process, and they kind of give you a little bit of information that you need to become prepared with, and then you obviously need to be able to give it your own twist and kind of sell the way that you want to be able to play football, but then also just as a club in whole, the club culture and stuff like that is really important, and leadership is really important and something that I hold really important in the footy club. So trying to get that across to the key stakeholders in those positions was daunting and nervous at the start, but it went really well, and they were all very supportive through the process.
So one thing you do have in your favour is a good coaching pedigree since you finished up in waffle football at 2015. Tell us what you've been doing in the time between then and now, and in particular, I'm interested in a stint you had with the Balmain Dockers over east in the Sydney Football League.
Yeah, I was lucky enough to get an opportunity with work to go to Sydney for 1 year and start up a clothing in a sort of sporting clothing brand that was kind of working with Clubland effectively. So that gave us the opportunity for myself and my partner at the time to go to Sydney, somewhere we weren't really. I wasn't really up to speed with what the landscape of footy looked like in Sydney, but was able to land with the club, the Balmain Dockers, who had an affiliation with the Freo Dockers, and it was just a lot of expats, to be honest. There was lots of WA boys, South Australians and Tasmanians there that we kind of got together. We had a bit of a flavour from the Freo teams over here in the Waffle. Jared Wilkie, who was a premiership player with me in 2009, was living in Sydney and was able to get him to play. Tom Matson was a player from Claremont that we'd played against in a grand final, was there, and then we had Selby Lestier and Lee Conway, who were East Fremantle boys, were over there, and we got all the boys together to form a relatively strong side in the Sydney comp. We got beaten in the grand final, but that was probably the first introduction to coaching, and it was something that from there was a little bit of a burning desire once I got back to Perth, and kind of led me into reaching out to when I finished at South to go and do a couple of years under Darren Harris at Claremont.
Bit of Upper Great Southern about that team, Craig, with yourself and Jared Wilkie. Jared Wilkie was a Boddington boy, am I right?
Correct. Wilkes was a Boddington boy, and
yourself from Williams, of course.
Yeah, we had a really strong Upper Great Southern feel. It's a wonderful zone for South Fremantle Footy Club. We're actually going out there on the weekend. We're actually going to Williams to do our pre-season camp and give back to that country area. Last year they went out to Tom Bleachinen's farm at Brookton. So we're really keen to get back out there, but we're love the connection with the Upper Great Southern Footy League.
You also coached successfully at Curtin Wesley. Tell us about your stint in the Perth Footy League.
Yeah, that was thoroughly enjoyable, Duff. I started there in 2019, and after doing a couple of years at Claremont under Harrow, and it was something at the start, which was more that there was a few mates that were retiring from South Rio in Ashford Hams, Ben Saunders, Corey DeLulio, and we kind of got together and went to Curtin Wesley at the time. They were in B grade at the time, and we were lucky enough to win the flag in that first year and get back up into A grade, and then another 5 years through there at Wesley with two grand final losses, and luckily a grand final win in 2023, which was great. And it was just probably the right time. 6 years was a great time there, but probably time for a change, and I was looking for that next challenge as well.
You mentioned your time at Claremont under Darren Harris. Obviously, he's a highly accomplished coach. That must have been valuable experience and a great learning experience for you.
Yeah, that's pretty much 2 years under Harrow is pretty much where I've got most of my coaching philosophy from mainly off the off-field stuff like the Harrow's experience around the culture and the leadership stuff is second to none, and I hold him with really high regard. And those 2 years I've effectively pretty much everything that I kind of try and do now is based similar to his values around that, and what I learnt in that 2 years is something that I'll try and instill in this group going forward in the next couple of years.
Tell us what sort of coach you expect to be.
I think the new age coaches, you got to have the relationship with the boys, and we've been really big over that in the pre-season, trying to promote the share your time kind of process, which means that you kind of need to know what each individual is like, what they do, and how they tick, because unfortunately these days the one rule doesn't fit for everyone, and you need to be able to know that these boys might be tradies working on roofs all day in 40-degree heat, and they come to training, and you need to be able to relate to them.
What are your gains and losses from South Fremantle as they were last year?
The gains have been well publicised, and we're really excited about. We've got a couple of young kids from the recruits from the country, which has been good, in Cooper Clark Deering being one of them out of the southwest, who performed really well down there. We've got Cohen Sanchez, who's a highly regarded junior footballer from across from East Fremantle, and Connor Carbone, another Southwest boy who was a Peel junior, but had played a couple of years in the Southwest. We're really excited to bring those three youngsters into the team, and then at the top end, Jermaine Jones, Hamish Free, Ethan Hughes are just quality league footies in their own right, and it should give us some really good balance across all lines, and being able to keep most of the guys. Obviously Hayden Sloyce had his unfortunate news with his health, that he's kind of going through his treatment at the moment, so we'll miss him for an extended period of time, but besides that, we've been able to keep most. So hopefully we've added to the squad, give ourselves a little bit more depth and strength across all three lines.
You're keeping an open mind on Hayden and whether he may be able to become available as the year goes on. Obviously his health is the priority in the short term.
Yeah, that's right, Duff. Like it's kind of like Hayden, the person he is, was initially really worried about when footy he is and when can he play again. But I think after sitting down and letting it all sink in, he's been able to just reset and just put his health as a priority and trying to make sure he gets that right. And he's started his treatment. I think he's a week in, so we're checking in with him regularly, making sure that he's all on track, and he's a great character. He's he's still got his humour and that in text messages, and when you ring him and you have a laugh and a joke, I think he's hitting it with the right mentality to get through it, and there's a really good success rate with it. So, look, we're hopeful, but again, we don't want to put any pressure on Hayden. We just want to make sure he gets himself right, and if we do get him, it's just a bonus. Jermaine
Jones came to West Coast as a forward, but ended up playing as a defender. How are you going to use him at South Fremantle?
Yeah, it'd be a little bit of a hybrid role, Duff. Look, he's obviously a quality player. We see his best for us potentially off half back, but the way that we've been training over the pre-season, he will do a little bit of inside mid-time as well. So we want to have a good balance in there. We want to have a number of guys that we can kind of run through the inside. His speed and his ability to use the footy is first class. So while we need it off half-back at times, we've got a really, experienced back line. We feel like we've got a bit of depth there. And while Jermaine will definitely spend time there, we want him delivering the ball forward of the centre and having some inside 50s if we can as well.
You mentioned Cohen Sanchez is an interesting player. A couple of years back, Cohen Sanchez was touted as not just a draft pick, but potentially a top 30 draft pick, and he had some late injuries and the recruiters got some doubts about him, and he's sort of been on the drift a little bit since then. Tell us about his summer and what you expect from him.
Yeah, look, Colin's come across from East Fremantle, just looking obviously for a little bit more opportunity. Obviously, East Fremantle have been super strong in the league side in his first year in the seniors, and their small forwards are really classy as well. So he found it probably hard to break in there, and he ultimately last year had an interrupted season as well. So like the back end of his draft year, he was injured for a majority of last year. He did 2 quads throughout the year, which obviously set him back. He's come across to us in a little bit of a tapered program. He's just hitting the ground running now. He's aerobically super fit. His time trials and all that are high level, and we're just trying to make sure that we get the right load into him where we can kind of make sure we can get him through for 18 games. So he's been introduced into some match sim drills and stuff, and he set us alight last Friday night. He kicked a couple of goals in kind of 5 minutes and showed us what he can do. So we're excited, but we're just tapering him because we want to make sure that we get him through the season as well.
One more before I let you go. Cooper Clark-Deering, you mentioned him earlier in the interview. Tell us a little bit about him.
Talented kid. He's got a cricketing background. He's concentrated on cricket for the kind of the early senior years, playing at Rockingham Mandurah in the first grade competition, but been playing country footy. And had a huge spike last year, kicking I think near on 2 goals a game down in the South West League. And Benny Howlett was his coach down there, and he's really good friends with Corey DeLulio, who's our forwards coach this year. And he reached out and just said, look, we need to have a look at this guy or try and get him. He thinks he's got the ability to have an impact at Waffle and all going well, potentially even put his hand up for the next level. So he's a super kid. He's really cheeky. He's got a huge amount of ability. He's able to leap, and his goal kicking's first class. So he's just trying to get his body into the right shape for a League 3 season. Obviously, mature age guy being 21. But look, yeah, we're hopeful that we can give him enough opportunities where he can have an impact for us. He's kind of the third tall type, probably at Waffle level. He's kind of 190. So he's not a key, but he's a really hard matchup for a small back as well. So we're hopeful that he can get some continuity over the next month or so and put himself in contention for round 1.
Craig, great to see you back at the club, mate. Great to see an experienced Waffle player putting back into the competition, and hopefully all things go well for the Bulldogs in 2025. Thanks for joining us on the show.
Thanks, Duff. Much appreciated.
Craig White, of course, he is the new coach of the South Fremantle Footy Club, and hopefully onwards and upwards for them in 2025.